Hey everybody, this is, I screwed it up, but that's fine. I'm Steve and welcome to the Deployed for Detroit School of Leadership and Madness. Sorry for the cough, but this is where we discuss leadership and madness. Yeah, it's kind of obvious in the title, right? What are we doing today? Today is a memorable day for most of us, but for a good chunk of the population, not really. They just heard about it, read about it. I think there might be more people alive who weren't there that day than were. I don't know. I could be way off on that. But I'm kind of thinking, worst comes to worst, that's going to be the trend. Anyway, so what are we doing today? We're trying to raise some money for a crazy idea, a preposterous idea, an idea that... I don't know. I think it's a little bit dumb, but I think it's amazing. I think that if we can pull this off and we can establish this as an actual trend in the country, it won't prevent a lot of things in the immediate future, but it will allow for a lot of amazing things to happen in the future. So let me get down to some specifics. That's a fun word, right? Specifics. That's fine. We'll go with specifics, right? So if you go on over to deployedfromdetroit.com, that website name gets longer and longer every time I have to put my email into something, because it's steve@deployedfromdetroit.com. And, man... That is, I don't know. Anyway, so on our website, we have the first link box here. It says, support the first annual deployment. And you see my little presentation on what we kind of have planned. The idea on the long and the short is we want to send 8 graduates of the class of 2020 to 8 different countries, where they'll spend a week in each country with the freedom to just kind of check it out, explore it, find it for themselves. We can, as we progress and develop the plan, we can find some more engaging activities for them to get into in each region. But right now, the plan really is to start getting an American kind of tradition of a gap year going, because it really is beneficial to a society. It may sound crazy, but especially for an up-and-coming society, or where we are as America, we're kind of in the silk slipper phase of empire, where most empires fall. And it's because they only know the stuff they know. And the stuff they know only makes sense in the world they're in. And that's very true for much of American life. Much of what we do and put so much time and effort and value into is of no use or value to some people across the world. And that might not make sense. And it kind of can't make sense until you're in that experience yourself and until you go. And so we already know what sending a bunch of kids over there with guns and uniforms does. I've been to over 100 funerals. I was on the honor guard, though, so I was supposed to be at funerals. But, I've been to a shitload of funerals. And so have all my friends. We've all been burying people. We lost another in Afghanistan a few days ago. This isn't over. And so we already know what that's giving us. We already understand what consequences come from that action. We're living in it now. And so my theory, or a hypothesis is probably the better way to put it, more accurately. Theories are a little bit better established. Hypothesis is a freewheeling good guess. That's what I've got. I think that if we can start getting our young people involved in the world, they will begin to care for their homes with much greater concern. And they will understand, they'll value what they have with an intensity they couldn't before. And they'll be upset by things that they never even thought about, that now they cannot let go. There are certain things that can only be brought out through experience, and that's what we want to provide. So if you are down with helping us with this, we'd like to get $80,000. It's a lot for one person, but it's not much if we can, beat the pavement and we can start getting people onto the site. I don't have a marketing team. It's just me by myself today. And so I kind of need you guys as my marketing team. So if you get a chance or an opportunity, tell people to go to deployedfromdetroit.com. Tell them why you decided to donate. Have a phone conversation. Don't just, for sure, shoot it on Facebook and Instagram and whatever else you got. Let everybody know what I'm doing here. But have a conversation with people, too, and tell them why you think we need to send these kids over. Why do we need to send these folks on a trip? And the $80,000, if we get that for sure will get us 8 people. That'll get us 8 slots. Anything over the 8,000, anything over the 80,000, but under 10,000 is just going to go to make the trip better. So if we get $99,000, that's just going to make the trip kind of cooler. But if we get 90,000 for every 10,000 bucks, I could throw another person on there too. So if we can meet my original goal of the $80,000, if we can somehow get 80,000 people to give $1 or 8,000 people to give 10 or whatever the hell it turns into, or whatever we can manage to pull off today, tomorrow, or however long it takes us to get there, we could send 9, we could send 10. If you give me 100,000, 150, all the money that goes on this GoFundMe is specifically going for kids on trips. That's it. It's going to sit there until I put it into a savings account, and then it's going to sit in the savings account until it goes to whomever is organizing the trips. It's going to pay for the airline tickets. It's going to pay for room and board. It's probably going to pay for some prepaid credit cards so they can do Uber and, all that stuff over there. We're going to make sure they're taken care of. It's all going to be handled. And so the more money you give us, the better we can make the trip, or the more people we can send. My goal is 8 because it's fun. Octopus is our logo, and 8. But if we could get more, that would be great. For $47 million, I can send 8 students from every school district in the state of Michigan. But I don't know if we can get 47 mil today. That's a bit. I don't even know if we're going to get the 80,000. But dreams are still good. Even if you can't get them, still have them. Keep them around. Because they'll get you to interesting places on the way, So, if you'd like to support the annual deployment, please go to the GoFundMe and drop some money into that. If you'd like to help Deployed from Detroit as an organization and help us grow and get where we need to be, you can purchase a t-shirt or a hoodie. We've got these set up. Underground Apparel in Ann Arbor has a POGO, Painless Online Group ordering. So it's an order form that stays open until the 15th of this month. So you got a couple of days to put in your order. It'll ship out on the 27th, and you should have it around the 1st of October. So good times, right? And if you want to get more involved in what we do on the podcast side of things, and not so much the sort of business operational side, we have our Patreon. And the Patreon is going to go towards supporting Deployed from Detroit, its missions, as we grow and proceed. But most of the Patreon is going to be going towards keeping the production side of things updated. So we can get someone, so we can hire some people. So we can have a team of people, or at least, compensate people for helping us out. We want to get that done. So if you join us on the Patreon, we've got shirts and stickers and patches and all kinds of fun stuff as rewards that I still have to get made. But we're going to get them made, and we'll send them out to you. But yeah, if you'd like to help us out, that would be the way to do it. So all of this stuff is on one page. You can send them to deployedfromdetroit.com. Deployedfromdetroit.com. Check it out. Hit the links. Do what you got to do. I don't know how much more I can make that sale. So please pass the word along, and I don't know. Let's just see if we can do this. That's all whether or not we succeed is it's important, but it's not going to break me. I'm just really interested to see if this is something we can do. If this is something we can do as people. I don't know. So, send your people to deployedfromdetroit.com. However you can. Text, email, Facebook. You name it. Do it. Alright, so back to our leadership instruction. We talked about what leadership is. We talked about its definition. We talked about the things that are going to impact what kind of leadership you have to deliver. And then we talked about the things you need to do to yourself in order to deliver better leadership. Pretty cool. Here, I'll take this off. So, this next bit is talking more about, rather than what kind of stuff you should know, because those are all interesting little tidbits and things like that. But these are, now we're going to start focusing on the type of person you should be. And it's risky talking about who one should be, because that is a very subjective kind of position. It's something that's kind of up in the air. We could try to define it, but it's not going to do us any benefits. And so, in this attempt, all we're saying is that if you would like to be successful or effective as a leader, if you try to inhabit these traits, you will be more successful. And this is just evidenced out through the centuries. This has been practiced by warriors for ages and ages and ages. So we've seen it done. We know how it works. This is usually the kind of result we get. So that's why we're saying you might want to consider being someone like this. It's not because not being this is not good. It's just that being this is going to get the job done. Okay? I'm going to stop beating that dead horse. All right. Beliefs, values, and norms. These are preposterous, crazy things that we invented as humans. Understanding these will help you develop your moral and ethical positions as a leader. Understanding what kind of beliefs exist around you, what kind of beliefs you have, what kind of beliefs your people have, what kind of things you value, they value, etc. Norms, what kind of things are acceptable and unacceptable, what kind of behavior is regulated and unregulated. Figuring this sort of atmosphere out will allow you to communicate more effectively to your people, because their belief structure may require a certain type of communication. Their value structure may require a certain type of communication. What they find normal. Some people are very, very turned off by foul language. And so if I'm, freewheeling like I do, some people get really bummed out. And I don't. I take the opposite position, and I get bummed out when people get bummed out about that. But it's what it is. So I just have to be careful of that. If I'm talking to somebody who gets all uptight, I need to know that, because if I start going loose with my language and they just stop listening to me, the conversation's already over and there's no point in continuing. So, in order for me to be effective in communicating my points to these people, I need to communicate in a way that's going to get through to them. And understanding how they see the world is going to allow me to get into that tunnel vision they have and be like, hey, here's what's going on. If that makes some sense. Pardon. So beliefs. Beliefs are assumptions. And you know what they say about assumptions. Or convictions that you hold true about a thing, a concept, a person, something. It is something that you just assume is a known value. Whenever this thing pops up, you just have it in your mind that this is the known value of that thing. I believe that this is the truth, so there you go. And then that whole, beliefs are really there to help you make decisions more quickly, because it allows you to store much more complicated thought processes and equations, essentially, into smaller formats. So you see the symbol for pi. We've seen it's a line and then a line and then, it's like a pause, a dancing pause button with a hat maybe. I don't know. We've seen it on our calculator. But that's because the button's not going to fit the 3.14 out to infinity. So we need to calm it down into something we can actually manage. And the same thing goes with our beliefs. Our beliefs are are pi. We believe pi to be true. We believe that when we see this symbol in our math equation, it's always going to be 3.14, so on, all the way down the line. And so these beliefs are the same thing. Someone's belief in God is a belief that, and whatever their unique sort of perspective and conception of that is, but they will always have the same assumption as you do, that when you write this into your equation, you will get the correct result. They feel that when they put God into the equation, they get the correct result. That's how their beliefs work, and that's how they can justify their beliefs. So as long as they can wiggle the math out so that it makes sense at the end, which is where you get a lot of like wild justifications for sort of crazier, more extreme beliefs, ones that are more difficult to justify, you'll find that the justification is usually nonsense. It's usually very complicated. This leads to that, that leads to this, and it just logically doesn't fall into place. You can have false beliefs. You can believe things that are not true. That is 100% within your purview, which is interesting. If you think about it, like biologically speaking, like why would we breed that in? Why would we keep that out of all the other things? Because if you can believe in the tooth fairy, you can believe that you're going to pull through this fight. And so you can believe things that could kind of maybe be true, but have a likelihood of not being true. And the benefit of that is it allows you to act as if though it were true. It gives you some kind of like, it's ignorance, but it's a superpower. It gives you the ability to sort of imagine the world as if that wasn't a factor, whatever the thing it is that you're sort of disappearing. But you can't have false knowledge. So you can believe a thing, but if it's proven wrong, you can't say that you know it to be true. I know it in my heart. Well, that doesn't mean anything. Your heart doesn't have memory cells as far as we can tell. I mean, it has localized memory cells for things it needs, but nothing for storage as far as I can. I mean, I haven't read anything on it. But, yeah, you can't. And so that's a weird moment of interaction for a lot of people when they find out that their beliefs aren't true. Because we have the ability to believe it anyway, they can skip it and just be like, well, what are you going to do? And live off their life in ignorance still. Or they can fall into some kind of existential dilemma and existential dread where, what's the meaning of life? Why am I here? Because especially, with this very specific example of someone having God in their life, if that's a big X for a lot of equations. That thing fits into most of the equations in a lot of people's lives. And then when you take that out, they have no way of handling all the other problems in their life. Because the one thing that solved all their other things, you took it out now. And so now they have to redo all this sort of crazy, complicated spiritual math. Who am I? Where am I? What is this? It disappears. And so that's why you do really need to be careful when you're talking to somebody about their beliefs and trying to readjust their beliefs. Because although it may be beneficial to realign their belief system, it is for sure dangerous to do it in a way that would cause sort of that level of dread. If you do not provide them with, okay, I'm taking away X, but I'm giving you Y. If you don't go that far, if you don't have I'm taking away X, and until you find a Y, I'm going to hang out on your couch in the living room. Okay? Cool. Like, they need a path through. So you do need to be careful with people as you adjust their beliefs. And you have the ability, you have the right, you can get in there and do it and noodle around and do your Jedi tricks. And I've done it before, and it's once you get to it, it's not that hard. But you don't do it that often because you realize that you do it wrong once and you're like, I'm never doing this shit again. And then you find yourself in a position where you kind of have to do it again. And so you just be very careful. And so that's kind of as far as I'll go on beliefs. You don't feel like you have to tiptoe around people who have certain beliefs, because if they believe it that well, then they should have the ability to defend that belief. And then if they don't, I mean, it's not your responsibility to help them, but it wouldn't hurt. I don't know. I really can't. Every situation's so unique, and distance from it like this is not going to help. But, be respectful of other people's beliefs. And be respectful, if not for the belief itself, but for the impact that belief will have on that person. That, you may not like the hurricane, but understand that it's going to do some shit. And it's the same kind of thing. You have to respect it. All right. Values. Values are attitudes about the worth or importance of people, concepts, or things. I like this. It's how we prioritize stuff is by value. They influence behavior by causing you to decide between two alternatives. I like this more than that. I like going outside more than I like going inside. I like pizza more than I like hot dogs. Whatever it is you establish, these values come into play when you make decisions, because you've made this list in your head. You have a hierarchy of all the foods you'd rather have and not have. And then you get to a restaurant and you start nailing down all right, cool. That's what I want. That's how you do it. Or, kind of, sort of, but it's sort of the gist of it. That's your values are established. Many of them are established really, really early. How you value other people, how you value animals, how you value other objects. All of it can be taught. You can teach someone to value things. That's for sure true. It's always more difficult to teach adults than it is to teach children. It's not impossible, but a lot of values are established early. And it goes back to leading by example. The example the parents play, or the example of adults in a child's life, will establish many of the values that the kid has later in life. Because that is their universe. And in their universe of what is right and wrong is demonstrated by these two. Or by television, or by whatever else kind of interferes in the process. But, anytime I see a kid who's a pain in the ass, I know it's a mom and dad thing. It always is. It's not mom and dad's fault. Nobody is good at being a parent. I can't imagine that's true. I can't imagine. I know for sure everyone tries and they love their kids and it's a whole. But nobody's good at it. It's way too complicated to be good at. It's a team effort. You can be all right at it. You could try. But I don't know of anybody getting any awards for parenting. Values. They influence priorities and establish hierarchy. Again, kind of like your restaurant thing. I like hamburgers more than hot dogs. Oh, they got hamburgers? I'm getting a hamburger. Oh, they don't have hamburgers, but they have hot dogs and nachos. I like nachos more than I like hot dogs. I'm getting nachos. Sorry, hot dogs. You lose. Go to a hot dog only restaurant. I guess I'm getting a hot dog. But now I go through the toppings, and I have a list in my head of what kind of toppings I like, and this, that, and the other, and there you go. Good values to uphold are courage, candor, competence, and commitment. How are these values? These are things to value. These are behaviors, series of repeated behaviors in a person that you want to identify as valuable. And so you say that courage, candor, and competence and commitment are good things. And then you also demonstrate that these are good things. So when someone is courageous, you reward them or recognize them. When someone has a good candor, or you just speak with good candor, you're frank with your people, you're honest, you're open, you're flawed when it's necessary. You do whatever you got to do to ensure that they trust that you are communicating to them as thoroughly as you can. Competence, you demonstrate competence, you encourage competence. This guy got 100% on all his tests. This gal over here shot 100% on the rifle range. This is damn fine shooting. This is damn fine whatever. This is competent work. This is what we need. Your ability to master this task, or yada, yada, yada. You point that out, and then all of a sudden, that's in the environment. You have put that out into the air, that this is what we're looking for, and then you'll see more of it. It's not until you demonstrate to your people what you want that you're going to start seeing it. And so that's why, people get ribbons and medals in the military, so we can say this. People get the Medal of Honor, one, because they have it coming. They deserve that shit. But two, it has sort of a reverse prospect. the Medal of Honor also tells us sort of like, we don't expect you to do this. Above and beyond is it's in there. Like, this is not part of the job. But look at this. Look at this. This is a masterwork. No one could have planned this. It's usually something crazy like that. It's 1 versus 100 or some crazy sort of scenario. And that's there to tell the rest of... That's why we award them posthumously. A dead person is obviously not going to give the slightest shit about their new award. The family gets it. Yeah, and it's nice for the family, but it is more so for the rest of the troops to see that this is the kind of behavior we reward. If and when it comes down to this, we will appreciate whoever stands up like this person did. And so that's why that's out there. Just the same as you have Employee of the Month at your shop, or whatever you've got to recognize your people. It's so that everybody else knows that, like, when you punch in, this is the kind of thing we're looking for. And when you provide that, we for sure are not going to ignore that. We're going to jump on it and be like, hey, this person's performing, this person do what I need to do, so on and so forth. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good one. So, core values. I'm going to list some core values from the Air Force, because I was in the Air Force, and the Civil Air Patrol, because I was in the Civil Air Patrol. Joined CAP when I was 12. A little bit early for a uniform in hindsight. But I still think it's a good program. I still think it's... the things it does definitely bring value to their members' lives. And the members definitely bring value to the country. So if you haven't heard of them, go Google them, check out their website. But they're great. And so I'll go over their core values too. So Air Force core values are integrity first. Kind of hilarious that it's the first one, and then it says integrity first. I think that was somebody in Air Force marketing. But it is critical. Integrity is the ability to, if you think about it sort of like in engineering terms, I may mangle the description, but it's the ability to maintain one's structure under applied forces. Or applied stresses is probably the better word. So it's your ability to stay who you are under whatever stresses are coming your way. So are you the type of person who, when it gets stressful, you get mean all of a sudden, or you start panicking, or you don't act, or whatever? Or when it gets stressful, or do you maintain your composure and go, well, this is nuts, and then just kind of keep going? That's the kind of integrity we'd like, but also integrity in action. We'd like a consistency that no matter what the stress is, you will always be someone who upholds all the other sort of beliefs and values that you claim to. And that's another sort of key important of like... it's a different kind of integrity than sort of like physical integrity. The ability to maintain, like, take abuse. Emotional integrity or like ethical integrity is another thing altogether. It's the ability to like maintain your values under stress, which it's really hard for people to do sometimes because values are fluid. They're meant to be fluid because the environment's always going to change and you're always going to get a better option. And so you might get a really good deal to rat out your country, or you might get a really good deal to rat out your friend. And then all of a sudden, you're just kind of like, well, the math's here. I'm going to do this one. And it's the more logical option. But it's the integrity, the ability to maintain the value of, like, I'm committed to these people and making sure they stay safe. So it's a better action than I just kind of keep my mouth shut right now. And that's how you maintain, that's that. Service before self in the Air Force. The idea that you're here to do a job, get it done, and piss off. That's very much the Air Force mentality. If you go to an Air Force base, it will look kind of like a suburban neighborhood anywhere, except people are in uniforms. And their behavior will be kind of militaristic. You'll hear sergeant and sir and ma'am a lot. But it's very different than the other branches. And it bums out the other branches sometimes because they want to be like, and all headline and straightforward. And yeah. The Air Force is very much like, I don't got time for that shit, and then they just go on to what they have to do. Not always ideal. Sometimes that causes them to skip out on a few things. We never really had formations in the Air Force. I think I had like 6. Whereas in the Army, they have them like daily. And that's sort of a difference in the thing. But there's a lot of times when I didn't have a formation that I was on my own, already tasked out, and early in the morning doing my own thing. And that's kind of the Air Force way of going, is that this is what we're up to right now. Everything else goes away. And so that's what you're here for too. So you understand that, like, whatever you want to do doesn't matter right now, because this is what we're up to. It's not so much that you need to go die, that kind of selfless service, but it is like, this is the most important thing, and you need to make it the most important thing. And that's all. We're going to expect that out of everybody. It's the only thing we expect from you, but we expect it. And then excellence in all we do. If you're not doing it well, then what the hell's the point of you doing it at all? And so that's kind of the caveat on that. Now, if we go over to Civil Air Patrol's core values, now Civil Air Patrol is an auxiliary of the Air Force, which means they are a subordinate component. They are not enlisted. They don't join the Department of Defense, but they volunteer to work with the Department of Defense in order to accomplish its peacetime missions, and as well as run a cadet program teaching youth and youngsters how to fly. They've got a huge drone program right now. STEM is a big thing. I've got a bunch of cadets right now building robots for me, and search and rescue drones that can hone in on a signal and move over to the target and let us know where it is, so we can sort of eliminate search times. It's awesome. It's a great experience. But what's different about them, and why they need to have sort of different core values, is because they are a civilian entity. Over there, I'm just Steve. Now, I'm Master Sergeant Saley over there, which is nice. I'm going to be buried as Staff Sergeant, because that's what is on my ID card. That's what I got out of the Air Force as. Unless something else happens in the meantime, it's going to say Staff Sergeant on my headstone. But I'm a Master Sergeant over in Civil Air Patrol, because they need somebody in a Master Sergeant slot. I took a bunch of tests. I did a bunch of training. I did a bunch of this. I qualified for it, so they put me in. And but it's still, it's kind of interesting, because even as my job's kind of like to be a military advisor. How does a military unit work? Here's how it works. Go for it. That's kind of, you get a lot of civilians who are handed a squadron, and that blows their mind. And it kind of should, because they have no experience with it outside of whatever they have already. And so you kind of need different values in different places. So the CAP's core values are integrity. They don't put integrity first, because it's already first. Volunteer service instead of service before self. So they're saying, we want our people to have integrity at all times, be the types we can trust on. You volunteered, so be the person who volunteered at whenever we need you. The crazy thing about a volunteer is you are 24 hours a day. And somehow you may do nothing at all for quite some time. And then you get a phone call at 3 a.m. and you're expected to move. And you do. And that's what integrity is. That ability of like, all right, I said I'd do it. I'm on the team. Let's go. And then that volunteer service of understanding that you've given up some time. You've traded the one thing you can never get back for something bigger. And we get that. And we hope you get that too. That's kind of, it says it's 2 words, but that's sort of what they're trying to get at with it. Same thing with excellence. They don't say excellence in all we do. They just have the word excellence. They'd like to see excellence. And then the last one they put on is respect. And it may seem odd to some especially like military organizations, because respect is sort of in there already. It's assumed. But in the civilian side, it's kind of not. And there are still subcultures in the American population that are real kind of iffy on who they issue respect to. And sometimes that's something we have to deal with. And so just right off the bat, without getting in there, we put respect on there. And we tell all of our members, like, everyone in here is sacrificing something. So shut your mouth and let's get this done. Thanks for coming. We always add that part too. Thanks for coming, because we do appreciate it. But The idea is like, you volunteered, so this is what you volunteered for, buddy. Let's do it. And understanding these core values, these are just things we want to have our people keep in mind at all times when they're doing whatever they're doing. So when they're out in the public and nobody knows who they are, we'd like them to not get arrested, because when it goes on the news that they're a member of our organization, come on, man, what are you up to? But, on the other hand, too, we don't want them to get arrested, because we'd prefer that they not be living some kind of bizarro lifestyle where that's going to be a thing for them. So what's going on with them? How do we take care of our people? These values are persistent from the individual at the lowest level all the way up to the leader. Everyone needs to be thinking about these sort of all the time, to the point to that you're not thinking about it. It's not something you're driving home every day and bullet pointing every minute, but it's something that's always just kind of, it becomes part of the practice. All right. Okay, courage. Courage is, we can divide courage into two sort of categories. There's physical courage, and then you have moral courage. Physical courage is standing up to, or being, standing up is maybe not the right word. Let's say a willingness to endure physical harm that could cause death, violence, injury, trauma, something. That would be physical courage. Or overcoming a physical, something preventing you. Like even if you have a nervous stomach, that is a level of physical courage, overcoming that nervous stomach. Your body is trying to prevent you from continuing on, and you are rather courageously telling your body to go fuck itself. And that's sort of that example of physical courage. Moral courage is the ability to withstand segregation, insult, things that damage your perception of yourself as a person. Moral courage is the ability to stand there and be called a bunch of names and then just go, no, you must have read the wrong Wikipedia. That's wrong guy. And then move on and just, or deal with the slings and arrows, or the physical and moral courage of standing up to a force and knowing, like, protesting is a good example of sort of both of these things. In the moral courage end of it, you have people standing up for a belief that they have, but they'll go out. The moral courage is taking the time off work, losing money, losing time, dedicating all this stuff. And then also the potential for being, identified or labeled or picked out, or whatever kind of additional threat you could put in there, being miscategorized or being pushed into a different group. The list goes on and on and on and on. And that is the moral courage of attending the protest. So that might be where you would see the moral courage is going to be before you get there in a lot of cases. Or it might be when you're in an altercation and one side's over here and one side's over there, and this guy throws a water bottle, hits you in the face, and your side just does nothing. That's the moral courage. It's the physical courage to stand. Whoever stood there and just took the bottle, that person's physically courageous. But for all of you to stand there and just be like, well, we're not going to do that, idiot. That's moral courage. To just be like, whatever, and then deflate it and stand and not engage in that level. That's that thing. So I'm going to show you guys an example here real quick. So the Doolittle Raiders, if you don't know, were 16 B-25 bombers that were stripped down to basically just wings and skin. Whatever it took to get it in the air, everything else was kind of taken out. And then it was loaded with bombs, and they were put on aircraft carriers. And this was the first time that we were ever going to strategically launch long-range bombers from a carrier. And I don't know that we've done it too many times since then. This was in response to the Pearl Harbor attacks. And so we got 16 B-25s, loaded them up for bear, put them on a carrier, and shot them off over Japan. And they only had enough gas to get them to Japan, because the bombs were so heavy that like you could only make so much room, or I forget what it was, but weight and balance, this, that, and the other. It was a one-way trip. The idea was for them to drop the bombs in Japan and then land in China and meet up with the Chinese Republican Army. But at no point was going home guaranteed. Getting to Japan was promised. Maybe getting to China was an option, but home was never guaranteed. And all the crews, I think it was 4 to 5 per crew. I don't have the details offhand. But, sorry, let's switch it around this way. But, they still went. And there is the physical courage of their guts rumbling as the engines start going and the aircraft is shaking. And this is the first time they've done this. Like, they've practiced, but that doesn't really mean shit when it comes down to the wire. And they're like, you know what? Do it. And they punch it, they throw the throttle, they hit it, they're off, and they panic, and they're maybe pooping and peeing, and things are not all their holes are as tight as they ought to be, and it's a mess sometimes. But then they're off. And then they know that they're about to go kill hundreds of sleeping civilians. Men, women, children, dogs, cats, birds, you name it. They're going to kill all of those people today. They are. If they believe in heaven and hell, they're for sure going to hell. In their own minds. But it's still worth it. That's that's sort of the insanity of moral courage. Even risking the concept of eternal damnation. Like, I'm not into... I can't believe it to be... That's a lot of effort for something that would bring no real return, cosmologically speaking. Just saying. I think God could do better than a hell. But that was still something they risked. The idea of not just never seeing their family, but then eternal damnation. Because it needs to get done. That's the crazy part. And that's the moral courage that it's exemplified in the military. But on the civilian side, you can still pull this kind of courage out of yourself. And in situations you encounter, if you, God forbid, are in a mass shooting kind of situation, you could panic like everyone else, but we've seen how effective that is. You could charge the person, but we've seen how effective that is. Not necessarily. Just wait for the cops and hang out. But it turns out, oddly enough, the most effective thing you can do in a shooting is bust out your phone and film it. How is that? Go figure. And you may not survive and you may not make it. But your footage is information we never had before on this creepy, bizarro phenomena. And when we saw in, most recently in Texas, and then there was this situation in Vegas, and we've had numerous situations now, and it's going to get to a point where they're all going to be filmed. And then we'll be able to figure out what the hell's actually going on and kind of decipher it from there. But that's kind of the moral, physical courage, the idea of what risk are you willing to take in order to ensure not only are you successful, but the rest of us are successful. How far are you willing to go in order to ensure that we all make it? That's where real courage is. And it's rare, but when you find it, it's amazing. Okay. Here's another fun story. So we'll go into the Chosun Reservoir. This is Korea this time. Lieutenant Colonel Chiestipuller, as it said up there, led the 1st Marines into Korea. There were 300,000 combined communist forces and 30,000 UN forces. So he was outnumbered just insanely by 10. Right? Yeah. Dyslexia. Things went haywire quick. That's putting it, I don't know, a little bit too comically for actually what happened. It was a shit show of immense proportion. They had to make an 80-mile retreat through enemy line, through enemy territory, while being shot at, while being shelled, while being you name it. And then all U.S. and UN forces made it to the shore in boots or bags. Everybody made it home. Now, not everybody lived, but everybody made it home. That's a certain level of integrity that we love to see in our leaders. This is why Chesty Puller is a saint in the Marine Corps. If the Marine Corps was the Catholic Church, this dude would be the saints. He'd be the first, like St. Peter, St. Paul, whatever. Whoever's first, you know what I'm talking about? But this is the guy. And this is part of the reason why, is no one left behind. It's a great idea, but sometimes you're in a position where there's nothing you can do, or so we thought. And then Puller just made it policy at that point. After he did this, it's all like, we won't even bury people overseas. That's just never going to happen again. Everybody comes home. Everybody. And if they don't, we work. The efforts we put into retrieving remains that haven't been returned is intense. There are entire organizations whose whole job is to do that. You know, that's separate and besides the point. But he changed at least our world in the American military of what was expected of us. And he changed what was expected of all Americans at any point. You know, now people know that when we come in force, we stay a while, we don't leave anybody behind. It's, you know, it's because of guys like this. And some of it's a mess these days, but most of it, you know, this troop care is what we call it in the service, troop care. And it's the most important thing you can focus on. Because the only thing you have, regardless of what your business is, or enterprise, or organization, the only thing you have is your troops. The only thing you have is your people. And if you do not care for them, they're gone. And you're just out of options and out of excuses. And so troop care is vital and critical. All right, so candor. Candor's a fun one. It's being open and honest and frank, and it's an expression of personal integrity, having candor. I talk this way to everyone. It doesn't matter who you are. Introduce me to the president, introduce me to the Pope, introduce me to your grandma. I might say fuck a few times, and it's just how I talk. Sorry, it's in there. But people know that about me. And so people know that when I'm presenting differently, something's up. And they can ask, hey man, how you feeling? You alright? You okay? What's going on? What's that? You playing a joke on somebody? You being sneaky? What the... You know, the change in my behavior, kind of like I said before, where the thing that disappears is what becomes obvious. And so if I stop being frank, if I stop being opus, if I stop with my form of candor, then I may not immediately lose trust, but I will start to lose trust. They'll start to think something's wrong with me. And if I start behaving that way without telling people, there very likely is. So hopefully they'll tell me. Whole thing. That's why being that kind of honest with your people is good. You know, you don't have to be as belligerent, I guess, as I am sometimes. You don't have to be as aggressive or abrasive or as intensely personal. You just need to be consistent, and you need to be honest in a way that is humble. Even if you're going to brag a bit, like, it's still put into a lens of some kind of perspective. And candor is that kind of way, like, hey, you're awesome at this, I need you to get this, though, and if you don't get that, we're screwed. That's candor. That's a quick sort of example of it. It doesn't have to be protracted and long and whatever. It's just a matter like, hey, here's the deal, let's go. It's sort of a break of ceremonial professionalism in order to ensure that the task is understood. And then that sort of break of ceremony into engagement of conversation personalizes it more. It's weird, but it's like, imagine you're in a big room and like one of those eyes wide shut orgies, and everybody's got masks on, and then you and your buddy keep taking your masks off to like talk to each other. That conversation is just for you. Even though you're taking your mask off and everyone else could probably still hear it, it would appear as though that conversation was just for you two, because now you're uniquely engaged, whereas everyone else is sort of engaged in the same way. So that's why sitting people down saying, hey, all right, man, here's the deal. Last month was not great. And I've got a few ideas to fix it up, but we're really going to have to talk about how we're going to move from this to that, or whatever you're going to do. It's the ability, it's kind of like what you're doing is you're setting aside, when you set aside the sort of rigid professionalism, the rigid appearance of professionalism, you set aside the appearance of the risk that comes with the rigid systems, the inherent, like, getting written up and all kinds of nonsense. So when you have candor and you put yourself in a more comfortable situation, they're not going to be wondering, like, am I getting written up? Am I losing my job? What's going on here? They're just like, what's this guy up to? What's this lady up to? What's this person up to? What's going on here? I heard a joke the other day that James Acaster made this joke where he said he was talking to somebody and they kept saying he or she. And he's like, people who say he or she only say that when they forget about she. And I think that's kind of true. Because I say guys a lot to say, like, everybody. I don't know. That's my thing. Look up that guy, by the way. He's funny. You'll like him. I don't know. Segway! 4 p.m. People are hopefully getting off work. Maybe we'll get some views. Candor invokes a feeling of professionalism. Even that break of the professional sort of appearance creates an additional separate kind of professionalism. It's bizarre, but it's true. And it supports the development of trust. If people think that you're willing to sort of take the mask off and show your real self to them, that's an appearance of vulnerability. And that's how you develop trust, is by sharing vulnerabilities with one another. All right. Competence is the proficiency required, the professional knowledge, judgment, and skills. Competent. It's the stuff you know. It's kind of like in the technical and tactical. It's the technical bit. If you have candor, you can talk about a subject and be honest with people. And here's what we're doing, and here's what's going on. And if you are competent about the subject, you can talk about it at length, sort of ad hoc, kind of like how I'm doing right now. I have a slide, but it's mostly just me kind of ad-libbing about things I already kind of know. And that level of competence will help you speed up your leadership process, because you're not referencing stuff all the time because you've done your homework. It's vital for the ability to lead and develop cohesive teams as well as develop troops. Is that true? Competence. As far as cohesiveness, yeah, I guess so, because the better they get at the task together, the better they will feel about accomplishing missions together. So the better they can, put together a hammock together, the better you're going to feel when you're like, all right, go put up 700 hammocks. Oh, okay. And so developing that kind of competence in them is going to give them the confidence, going with the N now, to do what you got to do. Speeding up, moving on. So here is one of my heroes, obviously. General George S. Patton. Woo! I'm going to read this because it's just kind of interesting. When I want my men to remember something important, to really make it stick, I give it to them double dirty. It may not sound nice, but to some bunch of it may not sound nice to some bunch of little old ladies at the afternoon tea party, but it helps my soldiers to remember. You can't run an army without profanity, and it has to be eloquent profanity. An army without profanity couldn't fight its way out of a piss-soaked paper bag. As for the types of comments I make, sometimes I just, by God, get carried away with my own eloquence. But then when you ask one of Patton's own troops, we would have gone to hell for Patton because we knew he would have gone to hell for us, and he did. And it's because he used the word hell rather than saying, oh, we're going to struggle and this is going to be hard. Boys, we're going into hell. And it's going to be fun. However he presented it, like, he was able to be free with his language enough that he could dip into foul language. Part of the other reason, too, he would say piss-soaked bag and son of a bitch, and it was an emphasis point because you would remember that part of the speech, and then it would also sort of add a pause to the speech and then create a separate segment. So you have a segment before the son of a bitch and after the son of a bitch. It was complete. Like, this guy was a lunatic. He was crazy, but he was dead on about many of these things, and he would often use profanity as a way to change the way the dialogue stuck to the people they were delivering it to. It's nuts. Now, I'm not saying go around your work and call people names and stuff, but what I would say is don't necessarily stop yourself. Just be eloquent with it. Be careful with it. Be tactical, technical, all the other words with it. You know, utilize it as a tool because it can be used as a tool. So you might as well. You know. All right. Commitment, dedication to carry out your mission. That's a pretty simple, kind of clear and focused point. Commitment to excellence, a commitment to service, a commitment, whatever you're committing, but it's you establishing the fact that for the next period of time, this is what I'm up to. This is what's the most important thing for this length of time, and that's how the world is shaped now. And that's sort of what you put into your troops and your subordinates and your employees or whoever you got. It's the same kind of thing, is that this is the season for this. This is the season for that. These are going to occur in this time period, and these are going to occur in this time period. If you can get them to understand these sort of operational periods, one, it breaks up the work week, because that is just a torture scheme invented by Babylonians, I think. Could predate it, but hey now. But yeah, come on now. But if you give somebody like, all right, we got the next 4-month period, this needs to get accomplished, these need to get done, and that needs to get done. Rather than every day, here's what you're doing today, here's what you're doing today, here's what you're doing today. You're not going to get anyone to commit because there is no length of time longer than a moment. So they have no practice in commitment at that point. So you do need to give your people longer tasks that they can stay on to and practice commitment out on. I think I'm getting towards I think we're doing okay here. So we're almost done with this section. My throat is killing me. I might lose my voice before the evening. I hope I don't. But let's go over this bit here. Actually, you know what? Let's take a quick break. I'm going to stay on the air, though. I'm just going to run some music, and then I just need to get some water or something in my throat so I don't... you know what I'm talking about. All right, enjoy the tunes. Love ya. Ba-ba-ba. Hey, I'm back. Alrighty. So it is 4 p.m. We've been at this since 10 a.m. and we're still gonna keep going because might as well, right? Right. So one more time, I'm gonna show you the website that we've got going, deployedfromdetroit.com. You can check it out. The first panel there is support the first annual deployment. We're trying to raise $80,000 today. So far, we have not. But we're on our way. Whoa! Careful, kitty cat. I got a cat in here that's going bananas. What are you doing, mister? Trying to knock over all my stuff. I get it. He's crazy. It's cool. What's up, mister? His name's Farmer. With a PH. He's pretty crazy. Named after my cousin. First annual deployment. We're running at $80,000. Reason being is for $10,000 we can put one person overseas for 8 weeks. So for $80,000 we can put 8 people overseas for 8 weeks. Why do we want to give 8 high school graduates a trip overseas? Why? The gap year is a thing in Europe, and it's beneficial in a lot of ways. It allows them to travel the world and see different places, and sometimes it's just a spring break kind of situation, and sometimes it's extremely cathartic, and it changes things for them. Our country, for the past 18 years, has been sending our kids overseas to shoot other people. And I was in the Air Force, and I get it, and it's part of the job, it's part of what's going on, that's the deal. But maybe we could try this too. In addition to that procedure, maybe we start sending some ambassadors out there who aren't so... Well, you get it. So that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to give people opportunities to be free and put some perspective on the things they've learned. They just spent 12 years in institutionalized education, being told whatever they were told. They've only had their family experience, their localized experience. They only know what they know. And because the world is so small, they have impact on all of it. And so maybe we need to give them just a bird's eye view of what they can do, what they can see, where they can have influence. Because we've gone well past the days of having to stay in your hometown. You don't even have to stay in your home country. You can, and I mean, it's always been like that for humans. If you look through archaeology and history and you go through it all, human beings have always been travelers because it does something for us and it does something to us. And so we want to give this opportunity because we know what we get out of everything else we've given them. So let's see if this gives us a better result. If we can give more kids perspective, maybe they'll start making better decisions. Maybe they won't be as afraid as their parents and then end up making decisions like them because they'll know. They'll have been out there. They'll have seen it. And they won't be so scared. That's kind of the hope. That's kind of the plan. Yeah, it's just a vacation. But sometimes that's enough to change the world. And if we can get enough money together, every dollar above the 80,000 is just going to make the trip better. Anything on this GoFundMe is just for the trip. If we get above 80,000 but below like 99.9 or whatever, we'll just make the trip better. We'll just put more stuff into it. We'll try, maybe we'll buy bags or we'll neat passport cases or who the hell knows. We'll get some cool stuff. But for every $10,000 above the 8, we'll put another person on that trip, and we'll open it up. And then if I get, let's put it to you this way: if I can get 16,000, I'll open it up to 2 school districts. For every 8, I'll open it up to a new school district. For every 10, I'll add another person. Let's do it that way, and let's see if we can get there. Because I know right now for $47 million, which is a bunch, and I'm not going to get unless some, crazy lunatic rich guy's like Dunzo and hits the button for me, I kind of don't think that's going to happen today. But in the future, if we get $47,000, I can send 8 kids from every school district in the state of Michigan. And now, yeah, I'm just looking at Michigan right now. And that's because I'm in Michigan. I'm from Michigan. I like the place. But I kind of hope you steal this idea. Deploy your ass from Des Moines. Deploy from Dallas. Deploy from Delaware. Deploy from wherever you got to go. But steal this idea. Go for it. Do it, please, because I think this could do something for us. I think if we invest, not just... Investing in education is what needs to happen. But our idea of how to invest in education is fucking nuts. Swear jar. That's going to Ronald McDonald House. It's preposterous what we do to these people. It's terrifying in a lot of ways. What's the scary part about it? We don't walk them through. We don't do that mentor-mentee thing. We don't give them an experience, provide them with an experience, or walk them through an experience, and then debrief them on that experience. That doesn't really happen. And we don't really have the time for that. It's not really set up like that. We talked about that earlier in the day, the benefit of a one-room school versus the current system of first grade, second grade, third grade, this, that, and the other. It doesn't work because the teacher's outnumbered. They have no way to mentor or mentee. And so they're expecting 7-year-olds to memorize shit? Come on. It can be done, but you can get parrots to do that too. They're not learning. They're not becoming better. They're just getting better at that dumb skill. And so, I don't know. It's whatever experience we can provide people, it's going to give them an opportunity to prove whether or not what we've taught them is true. I think that, and that's why this, high school graduates is probably the best target audience for this, because they've just been in the most intensive education program that we can kind of give right now. And it's not awesome. And it's missing so much context. There's so much that's not in it that needs to come from outside. Now, why do I think this can come from overseas trip? My first thought on this, it just comes from my own experience. And then talking to other veterans and other people who've traveled the world, is that America makes the most sense from the outside. It's like trying to describe a bus from the inside. You're only going to get part of it right. And you may not know the thing's yellow or blue or red until you get on the outside. And it's the same thing with our country. It looks a very certain way from the inside, from under the sort of glass dome that we live in. And once you get outside of it, you're like, that's it? All right. I thought, okay, I guess that's it then. Weird. And it changes things. But and it doesn't devalue anything, because the values aren't necessarily going to change. It's going to reposition that value. It's going to evaluate it at its proper valuation. That's a lot. I think I said the word value like 9 times in there. But I don't love my country less, but I hate it more. Does that make sense? It bums me out more. I'm not upset that I'm American. That would be a false statement. I love where I'm at, the benefits I have, the fact that I'm a disabled veteran. The paycheck they give me is not awesome. However, that paycheck has been able to get me enough that I can, month by month, get a piece of equipment here, get a piece of software there, get this by that. And I've been chipping away at this whole setup for a few years now. And I'm lucky I can do that. Because in other countries, you're just going to die. Like, that's it. You're a burden. Piss off. You're dead. Because they don't have the money. They don't have the resource. They don't have the time. They don't have the... And then in other places that are just as well established as the United States, you go to Great Britain, go to Germany, go to France, go to... Italy's government's always bananas, but the people are kind of cool. They're always pretty stable. The government's always a mess, but the people are always the same. It's weird. Whereas other places, like, the people can be kind of different, and I don't know. But they seem to be... They're Italian, You could spot them in a crowd. I don't know. It's out there. They'll find themselves. They'll find something. And even if they don't, it'll be fucking awesome. And I mean, how do we not owe this to them? How do we as a society not owe something like this to these children that we're about to send off in this fucking war that we could not resolve, that we failed to resolve? And those failures now are going to drip into their lives. A separate entire generation is now dealing with our fucking mess. So I kind of think we owe them something, right? I mean, they already feel kind of... Maybe that's where their sense of entitlement comes from. I mean, they're given so many things and they're presented so many things. And not all kids are entitled. A lot of kids are good. I teach kids all the time, and most of them are pretty awesome. Some of them are, but it's kids. Kids are always the same. I don't know. I say I don't know a lot, and that's probably not the best for trying to prove that I have a grand plan here, but it is a feeling that I know is so true that I've done this, that I've begun this. I think there's more that we can do, and I think it involves being creative, and I think it involves us going around the systems that are in place rather than trying to destroy them. I think it involves us working together and communicating and talking and everything. Like, you know how you prevent a school shooter? You talk to them. That's true. If you think there's a kid who's about to go nuts, you know how you get them to calm it down? Play some Mario Kart. Or euchre. Or go talk somewhere. Go to McDonald's. Have a cigarette behind the dumpster. Break the rules. Engage with that person. Ensure that they know they are part of the unit, part of the team, part of the whole. And then they won't feel the desire to damage that organization that they feel separate from and that they feel is threatening them. That's why they're shooting it, because you're a dragon to them. And what the fuck else are you going to try and kill a dragon with? He's not going to use a knife. He's not going to take down a dragon. You bring everything you got. And that is emotionally what these people are doing when they engage in this kind of behavior. But they're so emotionally illiterate, it might be the word, but disconnected from what's happening inside their body and disconnected from what's happening outside of their body. They don't know what's going on, and so they're guessing. And their instincts lead them down bad paths because their instincts are thousands of millions of years. They're too old to be of any goddamn use these days. Like, suicide is an ancient thing that we have bred into us as a mechanism for making sure the population doesn't get slowed down by taking care of all the cripples. So it's better for people who are injured or at a time it was genetically beneficial for people who got that kind of ill to just piss off. And so we left that in, either it was accidentally or whatever, but like, and that's why suicidal ideation still exists, because it was valuable once. Like, there's all these crazy things happening inside of our human little body that of course people are going to go fucking bananas because they don't know. And it's a matter of the poor education, poor experience, poor this, poor that. But it's not a matter of anyone being to blame per se. That's the sort of crux of the problem we have right now is trying to figure who the fuck did this. That's our we're trying to figure this out. Who did this to us? Who did this to my boy? Who did this to my girl? Who made this happen? Who changed this creature? Who changed this place for me? Who made my life no longer safe? They need to go. And the unfortunate thing is that it's environmental. It's 100%. It's not one person. It's all the people. And it's not one moment. It's all the moments. And that is the terrifying complexity of these situations. Because there is not... If you're in a position where you knew somebody who acted out violently and you're kicking yourself in the ass and you're like, oh, I could have... he sent me that weird email, and I should have fucking sent it, and I didn't, and now they're dead. Yeah, all right. But I bet she sent that email to some other people, too, and they also didn't turn them in. Or there's plenty of other signals, or whatever. All of us are only capable of so much, and you do everything you can in that moment. Otherwise, you would have done more. I mean, you might stop yourself for whatever reason, but in most cases, people are going to do everything they can. And then they just kick themselves in the ass for not being able to do the things they couldn't. Well, stop it and go learn how to do that thing then. I mean, I don't know. And I think a reset of environment is critical. And if we can take kids from public school, I think public school's the best first target. Because public school doesn't have a guarantee of income, whereas private schools typically have a guarantee of income because they have a cost. So there's a likelihood that they may end up on a trip anyway in certain schools. But in private school, it's kids like me who were only going on vacation if they, we only drove on vacations, which was cool for me. I'm a road trip fan. But I didn't find out that was considered weird by some people until much later, where they're like, why would you fly, or why would you drive to Saskatchewan through Texas? And we're like, that was cool. And, they look at me like an asshole, it's a 4-hour flight if you take this and that and the other. I'm like, yeah, but it's a 2-week, adventure if you take a station wagon that doesn't have an AC. Oh, I know. I'm crazy and I get off topic. But I think all these things thread together. If we can put them, we pull them out of their experience and we put them in this place where they can only know so much. And things are so slightly different everywhere that you're going to embarrass yourself. You're going to get in trouble. You're going to piss off somebody's grandma. That for sure. I don't know how that happens, but in every country, there's a grandma ready to get mad. And she's going to, whoa, there she is. And she's upset. What'd I do? I put the vodka on the wrong coaster. My bad. There's a special coaster for this. Okay. And it's part of learning and expressing of I know this to be true, and so I behave these ways. And then you go over there and you're like, what the hell's this guy up to? I was in Kyrgyzstan, and it was raining, and they have these beautiful trolley cars that were put up in the Soviet era, and they look kind of like the ones in New Orleans, but better. Sorry, New Orleans. I love your trolley cars, but these ones look newer. They got this kind of Art Deco, very that communist kind of stylistic vibe to it. And in the middle of a thunderstorm, it's a dude with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, grabbing the antenna that touches the wires. You got the wires, and then this thing goes, bleh. He's finagling with this thing in the middle of a thunderstorm, and all us Americans are sitting on our tour bus that boy's going to die. We're about to watch a fella die. He didn't die. He was fine. He got in, knew what he was doing. And you just start to learn about Soviet maintenance, which is aggressive and weird. And so whenever, that always blew my mind over there. We take care to, especially in the military sense, we have full instructions on how to do everything. It could be how to change a tire, how to, you name it, step by step, it's there. You go to Russia and they just hand you a hammer. And they're like, hit it till it does something else. You're like, okie dokie. And that's, they do have great technicians, great scientists, great engineers, but they just don't have the budget to issue out repair equipment. So a lot of what they have to do is just figuring it out. And then what that leads into, which is even more interesting, is these guys are mathematically brilliant, scientifically brilliant, but they're completely poor. They don't have any money in Kyrgyzstan. It's at one time it was the poorest nation in Asia. It may still be the case. But they have ingenuity out the ass. It's nuts because Bishkek was established by Stalin to hide all the smart people that Russia had when Germany invaded. And so he's like, "Whoa, send them down there. They'll be safe because it's way the hell out. It's middle of nowhere kind of spot. It's beautiful, 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 beautiful city." But that's where all the geniuses of the Soviet Union went. And then were stuck there for a bit and had babies and mixed with the locals and jived. And it's a real cosmopolitan kind of groovy culture. And then every once in a while, a nomad just pulls in on a horse to get minutes for his phone. It's the weird. It was like Blade Runner. It was crazy. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And it was nothing like home. But there were so many things it reminded me of. One of the things about Bishkek that I found so fascinating was how much it reminded me of Detroit. And that's what kind of first got me thinking about sending people overseas, because I think people from Detroit could learn from Bishkek, because Bishkek is just as broke, well, less, or it has less money. They are more destitute. They have higher rates of like infection and just because of the poverty level, and because like it's a mess in certain specific areas, but it's alive. That's what blew my mind about Bishkek, is the streets were bustling. Bustling. Yes, it was the only city for hundreds of miles. And so if you wanted to do city stuff and you lived anywhere, like it's one of two places in that country. And but it was alive. It was much more alive than I have ever seen the city of Detroit in my entire life. Even Super Bowl, and well, I was deployed for the Super Bowl, but like seeing that on TV wasn't shit compared to Bishkek on a Thursday. It was just rolling constantly. And even though they were surrounded by things that could bring you down, they just went around it. And that was the most fascinating bit to me, is they would just go around. Either build it into something else, or, oh, this is an old KGB, they used to beat people up back here. Gross. I'm going to sell t-shirts out of it now. Fuck yeah. And boom. And now you have a t-shirt store, because they just got capitalism and they kind of went nuts with it. But like, I don't know. I can definitely go on some rants about this, but I know what's in me as a result of my travels. And I think the only way, I mean, boiling it down to the sort of best point of articulation is that what is in me because of my experience is so beneficial and intense and powerful that I feel compelled to share it. And I cannot share it effectively. It's not anything. I could show you pictures and you're like, neat. Mountain, cool, seen it. City, seen it. Street, seen it. It's, watch a slideshow back in the day, or a YouTube video of a slideshow, if that's, I don't know. But it's never going to be the same until you put your feet where my feet were. And even then, it'll be different. But you'll get it. Or you'll get something like it. But never until you're in that place and in that moment. And so this is a way to provide our youth with something besides predictability. This is a way to break that chain of go to school, get a job, get a casket. The American dream used to involve dreaming. And now it's all about settling. I think that's something we can fix and we can address. And I think it's addressed by this. I think it's not entirely. It's not fixed. It's not over if this is initiated. But I think a procedure or a process or a tradition like this can do nothing but good things. Even if we send somebody over there and they fuck up and they break the law and they end up in jail and it's a whole nightmare, 7 people are going to have a great time. It's worth it. Good things are always worth it. And I'm sitting here talking to myself for 6 hours now because I think it's worth it. And I don't know what else I can say to prove that. So, I'm going to move on. Alright, so, Like I said, all the money, if you go on the GoFundMe, that's going to go directly for this trip. All for this, putting kids in a plane, and off we go, well beyond her, all that good stuff. If you would like to help my organization, Deployed from Detroit, we are currently a Michigan nonprofit, but we don't have our federal, the 5013C, C31, we're not federally tax exempt yet. So, none of our donations today thus far are federally tax exempt. If you help us out with the t-shirts and the Patreon, and we can get up to $1,100, I can go ahead and get the 501 what have you, and we'll be able to, you can write it off on your taxes by the time tax season comes around. Because as soon as I have the $1,100, it should take me about a week to get that number processed. And then, boom, on your taxes, this is a write-off. You're good to go. But unfortunately, until I have that number, these can't be written off on your taxes. I'm still waiting on my state tax ID. So I think you can write this off on your state taxes. But I got to double check on that. I'm on my own today, but what I'm going to have is like a follow-up page put up for anybody who's donated. We'll be following up on all three sites, so you will be hearing from us if you donate or join or whatever you end up doing. But as far as like the tax status stuff, we're going to put up a special page for that to let you know, hey, I made a donation. How do I write that off on my taxes? How do I get a return? Yeah, because, hey, might as well help a podcast out and get some money back in April. That's not a bad deal, right? Okay, so, brain pause. What do we want to do, folks? We can continue on with the instruction, which is a good idea. We've got 2.5 hours before John comes, and we can talk about movies. Get out of the textbook. That'll be fun. Don't vape, apparently, because you'll die. Also, addiction sucks. Okay, here's a quick true statement. I have used this while reading about people's lungs popping. I have also quit heroin. Nicotine's a motherfucker. Nicotine, it's in there. So do be careful. It is what it is. It's going to fuck up your blood vessels. You're going to be cold for no reason. You're going to be cold like an old lady. Your nose will be cold, ears, fingertips. Blood circulation gets cut off. Because if you switch from smoking, instead of having the dry cough, you end up having a wet cough and boogers and stuff. You're essentially giving yourself pneumonia unless you actively cough it out. Yeah, it's stupid. This is not a good behavior. However, it's what I got right now. I don't like the patches because they make me want to smoke more. That was a problem I had when I was first trying to quit. I got the patches, and then it would give me just enough nicotine to be like, I could use a cigarette, which is not the right amount for me. And then I tried the little thing, what the fuck, tablets or whatever you want to call them. But you like suck on them for a bit. Lozenge, that's the word. And it burned my lip like chewing tobacco. So I was like, nah, I'm not doing this anymore. Chewing tobacco put a hole in my lip after 6 months of chawing that too quick. Yeah, none of it's good. There's no safe way to hurt yourself, kids. It's gonna suck. If you can hear that, that is a young boy cat becoming young man cat. Oh, goodness gracious. All right, let's move on. Let's go back into some of the instruction stuff. So let's talk about norms. Norms are rules and laws and procedures and policies. Anything that is written is a norm. That anything that's like, this is how we do it. This is behavior dictated at the population. This is a statement of how we act. They're usually based on agreed upon beliefs and values. So typically people setting up these rules. So like if you go to the Constitution, on the top it says, "In God we trust." Half of the framers did not think God was a person. They thought God was an idea. The other half thought God was a dude, an entity, a creature that exists elsewhere. Completely separate beliefs, but because X equals X equals X, they were able to come to the similar conclusions to one another and come up with these sort of guidelines of behavior that everyone could adhere to. And so where one religion might be a little bit stringent and a little one's a little bit more lax, that's why they put in the freedom of religion in the Constitution. So that nobody, like, it's just so the government doesn't have to deal with it. So that there doesn't have to be a law about what kind of hat a priest is wearing, or like, nah, we're good. We don't want to do that. That's too much. Just be cool, right? That's your guys' thing. That's our thing too. We're good. We're good. And that's how we established the Constitution, with these very different belief sets, these identical beliefs in certain ways. They believed in the value of humans, but then they were also slave owners. So they valued other humans differently than one another. They still believed, Jefferson's crazy. If you look at him historically, he believed wholeheartedly that slaves should be freed, and he kind of felt stuck. He felt like he was born into a situation that he could not get out of, which is bananas, considering that he was the slave owner. But his position as he felt it, or kind of perceived it at the time, was that if he had gone ahead and freed everybody, then he would be killed, and his family would be killed. Because I don't know, there was dumb science out there that was categorizing human beings as being categorically different in ways that just aren't true. And so scientifically you could get away back then with saying, oh, that's just a person like this, and they do this, and you could treat them like a parrot or a dog, and scientifically you were justified because the scientists were idiots back then. They were trying really hard, but that's the case. And so how does he balance these beliefs? And he puts a self-destruct mechanism in the Constitution. He knows that he cannot free the slaves, but he knows somebody needs to, and somebody needs to have that ability. And so Jefferson, he definitely copped out. He could have put his head on the plate and freed everybody. And we could be 60, 70 years past where we are now, but that's not what happened. It's not where we are. And so because he kept himself alive, he figured the other thing he could do is create a system of government or work into the Constitution a way that it could happen in the future. Because he was like, we're not ready, which is kind of a bullshit excuse, but it is a common excuse given by societies about changing laws. They're just like, oh, we're not ready for this. This is too extreme. This is too this, too that. Somebody comes up with a reason. Mostly it makes them a little bit uncomfortable, and they haven't dealt with why it makes them feel uncomfortable. That is their only problem, more than likely. But yeah. So something to remember when you're dealing with these norms, these informals, and there are unwritten laws too that become norms. The sort of peer pressure, this is how we do it around here kind of things. Implied behaviors, those can become norms. This is how we enter a room. This is how we, whatever, those established patterns of behavior can eventually become a norm of their own. But these are all arbitrary. These were all invented by a person. And so you can full on ignore them. Understand that they were all developed with good intention and with the best research possible at their time. But that's the only credit they need, is they tried really hard, and what are you going to do? They're wrong now. A couple hundred years later, we got better paperwork. Cool. Moving on. It's the idea of depersonalizing yourself and others from whatever you're dealing with, because whatever you're dealing with likely doesn't care about your feelings. I mean, if you're dealing with a person, they might. But if you're dealing with a hurricane, they don't give a shit. They don't have time for your feelings. We need decisions, actions, motions. Let's do this. Go. That's the game. And so have the mind, the clarity of mind to understand what norms are good, what norms we can ignore, which ones we should just get rid of altogether, which ones are unjustified. And then sort of the more difficult part is tackling how do we change this in a person? How do we reestablish a new norm? And that's typically through civil disobedience. Is a very modern but amazing sort of tactic. It is the braver solution than combat. Martin Luther King was far braver than the Antifa folks. The Antifa folks are looking to get hit and maybe get killed so they can have a martyr so they can justify further violence. That may not be their expressed intent, but I can't see that ending any other way. They don't train their people. They just send them off willy-nilly without experience and let them loose. And then they hit somebody, and then they see what happens when they've hurt somebody, and then that changes in them. Or they find themselves with a fucking bike lock in their hand, and they get to that point and they realize this is not what I should be doing. But they're surrounded by 80 other people with bike locks. And that's shit out of luck. You got to swing that puppy. Otherwise, they're coming for you next. That seems to be the intent. If not the intent, then I don't know. But that's what's going to happen with that organization. Because they use quick, sort of cowardly, reactive methods. Things that are childish and juvenile. Whereas Martin Luther King was a fucking samurai. He and all those that followed him were samurai. When the cops came over the bridge at Selma with bats wrapped in fucking barbed wire, they all took a slug to the face, willingly, knowing they could die. Because if they didn't do it, they couldn't live with themselves. If they didn't do it, nothing was going to change. Nothing was going to happen. No one would know. And if it takes 6 fucking funerals, 7 funerals, 8, 9, 10 funerals, then that's, unfortunately, in that position, that's how they felt. And that's what they felt was needed to get that message across. And that's far braver. They didn't hurt anyone. And and it makes a point that is hard to ignore. Because when you laugh at your executioner, the enemy doesn't know what to do. All they've got is death. That's the only thing they can do to you. I mean, that's the maximum amount of escalation they can bring upon you. And if you're cool with that, they got nothing on you. And then they're scared. And you win. Eventually. But that's how that works. These norms, these things we have are good. And they're all meant, they're all well intended. But the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That is a true statement beyond all true statements. If there was a geography and there was a place, you would see nothing but little cobblestones of hopes and dreams. And whoop! Oh. You know. What is the negative impact of what I'm doing today? Who am I pissing off so much that they go crazy? Is that a possibility? Yeah. But that's just what happens. That's when you make waves. I don't know. You make waves. That's just what happens. And you have to be prepared for it. And know what the society around you is prepared to do. That's a good way of understanding the norms. If you get into trouble, how is the society going to help you? How are they going to come after you? How are they going to support you? Good, bad, the other. The norms will sort of dictate that. You'll understand, like, oh, if I get arrested, I'll go to jail. And then I'll see a judge, and I'll see. It's going to suck, but it's a thing. All right, let's do this. Versus you could be in a different location, and they just cut your head off. And that's all she wrote. Or they cut your hand off. And then they cover it with a paper bag. Or a plastic bag, sorry. It's gnarly. Amputations are weird to watch. Yeah, so that's about the most I can do on norms. Is ignore the ones you don't need. Keep an eye on the ones you do, just because they're convenient. But don't allow them to dictate for you what's coming, because these things were only true yesterday, and that's the same. It's the same with all facts, figures, numbers. All of this was just true yesterday. And we kind of have to work every day to confirm that it's still the case, that it's still what's happening. So let's move on to this. All right. The importance of beliefs, values, and norms. Why these things are necessary. Why you need to focus on them, pay attention to them, develop them in yourself. All these kind of fun bits. They guide the actions of groups. When you're in a group, these shared beliefs, shared values, it's the closest thing you can get to mind reading. Because you know, if they value certain things a certain way, then they'll behave a certain way in a situation. If they value the mission over their safety, then they will risk their life more readily than they would otherwise. Or, whatever you're putting out there. Whatever these people believe is going to dictate how far you can push them. They can cause heroic action and cowardly decision. These beliefs, values, and norms are things that we deem to be so right or so wrong that they'll push us into other behaviors in order to either prevent or encourage it. Yeah, that's probably about as specific as that gets. Your troops will follow a leader they believe in and who embodies the same beliefs, values, and norms they do. Your people want you to believe in the same stuff as them. It doesn't have to be the exact same stuff. It just kind of has to be ballparkish. If you believe in, people are good or people are bad or things like that. It doesn't have to be the nuanced bit of specific versions of a Bible or sutra, or that doesn't matter. They just need to know that, more importantly, you're valuing the same stuff. And if you want your folks to be more effective in their tasking, understanding their beliefs, their values, their norms, this is going to help you understand how to employ them, because it's going to allow you to predict their actions and behaviors ahead of time, because these are the only behaviors of theirs ahead of time, because they've agreed to behave this way. If you kind of look at it, they said, I'm going to do these things in addition to whatever comes out. And so you have the rules, the regs, you have whatever your organization has. That thing. You have your beliefs, your values. We do this. There's no man left behind. Whatever you're going to do. So that's a lot of stuff that you just know ahead of time. Don't have to guess. Don't have to research. So I can push them out there. And then that allows you to then figure out, how creative they are, and then how much supervision they need. You're going to need to practice this for it to make any kind of sense, but this is the thing that this kind of area is the most delicate, and it's going to take the longest to figure out and get in there. But travel helps. Going out and talking to new people and experiencing new things and understanding their position on your belief is fascinating, because you could be way off or way close or thinking the same, thinking the opposite. It's always different, and it's always beneficial, that level of contrast, because it just gives you a new angle to measure from and to test how true the things you believe are. So, that's another kind of big point of the travel idea, is that we can prove to them, or they can prove to themselves, whether or not the stuff we taught them in school is right or wrong. All right. Influencing beliefs, values, and norms. As a leader, you have influence. As you're setting the example, you're saying this kind of behavior is praised, this kind of behavior is punished, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, so on and so forth. So when you recognize behavior, or you recognize somebody exercising value judgment based on this, or adherence to the norms, or whatever it is, but if you want people to know that this is what you want out of them, find people who are doing it and give them an award. That's the trick. Hey, good job, you're doing awesome. What did I do? Oh, you filled out your time card. All these other dipshits don't do that. Oh. Oh, we're supposed to do that? Boom. Problem solved. You can also influence these beliefs, values, and norms by providing a place for them to be tested in. And so this is usually on the military side where like training comes in and running drills, running exercises. All right, you're blue team, you're red team, you got the hill, you're taking the hill, go. Oh, you died, you're this, you're that. You know, the war games, that kind of stuff. The kind of PT that the SEALs do where they just end up crying every day because it's that hard. That is there to influence. It's Hell Week in the SEALs, as I can't remember the guy who said it, but he put it really eloquently. He said, like, Hell Week for SEAL training exists just so you can tell yourself you made it through Hell Week. It's a weird thing. They torture these poor dudes for quite some time. And they get some good training out of it. They PT'd all to hell. Their cardio goes up. They learn how to, whether or not they can swim so hot. I mean, there are benefits, but most of that course is designed for them to have something to feel amazing about and feel confident about. So that when they engage in the next stages of training, they're like, well, this ain't like that stuff. And you're like, yeah, so quit bitching. Let's go. We're jumping out of this airplane. Cool, man. Because it sure as heck ain't what they've already been through. And so when you plan different and difficult training, you can get some really kind of terrific results as your people are going to learn very clearly about themselves, things they thought were right or wrong or this or that. Again, it's kind of like giving people responsibility by throwing them in the pool, or it all comes to experience. Understanding these things won't necessarily happen until you experience it and you have that moment of like, oh, okay, this is what they were talking about. Until then, everything I'm saying is complete just nonsense. I mean, there's probably like 15% of the population that has any idea of what I'm talking about, right? I don't know. I'm also a bit of a jabberjaw. Moving on. Influencing these continued, reinforce your behavior with actions. Yeah, I've already kind of gone over this. What you do is what you're going to get. How you behave is how your troops are going to behave. It's not going to be a mirror, but it's going to be the better judgment of what's going on. In most cases, if I want to check out how a unit's doing, I check out the subordinates. And that tells me everything I need to know. Ask them what's going on. Who's the unit commander? Okay, we have problems. They don't talk here. Moving on. What's this stuff? And you can kind of step your way through. Yeah, that's good enough. We can move on to this. So, character is the next bit. Character is a person's inner strength, kinda. It is the link between their values and their behaviors. It's the consistent way that they address these value problems, this versus that. So someone's character is the thing that we're looking for them to maintain the integrity of during stressful times. So we said integrity is the ability to maintain your form under types of stress. What we're trying to have you maintain is your character, which is how you apply values or how you deal with values consistently. So doing what's right regardless of circumstance, is a big part of it. There are different modes of character. Self-discipline is a great character trait. That means when I think of this person, I know that they'll be able to get a task done because they'll be focused on it. Determination. I know I can give this task to somebody because they'll see it through. If they have initiative, they'll probably come to me with some tasks. I'm like, hey, we should try this. We should try that. If they have compassion, they'll be great mentors and they can talk people through weird situations. If they're courageous, I can put them against our bigger challenges and see what happens. And if they maintain that character throughout, then they'll sort of consistently get these better assignments and projects and get these new experiences because I can rely on them. I know that in this situation they're going to behave this certain way, and that's exactly what I need. Dialectics and character. This one is it makes sense, but it doesn't. There's this idea that both arguments, sort of emotional arguments, have a true side, or a bit to them that's true. Let's say I'm having a problem where I have depression, and part of depression is you think very poorly of yourself. So I'm just sitting around thinking, oh, I'm a piece of shit. So, okay, why is that true? Well, because I'm not moving, I'm not doing anything, not getting anything done. All right, why is that also not true? Well, I was either poisoned by Russian agents or Filipino dogs, but my body doesn't work. So I can't get up and move. So I really shouldn't be expected, but I still kind of feel like shit for not doing anything. Well, that's where you're at least. And for me, that's kind of a common way that goes down, but that is a similar way that I think you can work your way through. You may not come to a resolution that makes you feel great, but you will come to something that is more true than your previous argument. And so if you're looking at one of your troops and you're like, this person's a piece of shit, okay, why is that true? Well, they don't do this, they don't do this, they don't do that. All right, so why is that also not true? Well, I know they're a good person. I've talked to them before. They probably got something going on. Something's interfering with this, because otherwise they would, in every other instance, I know this person, they would behave this way, but whatever it is, and you start to come up with something clearer, like, oh, they might need help. Okay, so and then you're not coming to them with your counseling session and jumping in their face. You're coming to them with a position of sort of empathy, like, hey, are you all right? We're expecting this, but we're getting this. What's going on? That's that just taking a few seconds to figure out, like, am I 100% on this? And it's just a matter, especially with extreme ideas. If you're angry, if you're overly excited, this is what we're doing, this is how it's going to go. Throw down, all right, just play devil's advocate, kind of, to your own emotions and to other people's emotions. Someone comes up to you and you're counseling them, and they have the same kind of thoughts like I was talking about. Oh, I suck. This, that, and the other thing. All right, why do you suck? Okay. Well, I see that, but you also got these going on, and you throw it right back in their face, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, I guess so." Because in a lot of cases too, especially with mental health, your body won't let you focus on good stuff, because its priorities are established in such a way that it needs to know all the bad stuff. It's just where it's at. It's a thing. And so this is kind of critical for a lot of people, because you're going to end up with tons of bad thoughts and memories and this, that, and the other, and you're not going to know that you had a good time. You just won't remember it. And sometimes you need to be reminded that you had a good time. And when we talk to people, we stitch together new memories. And so when you tell me that I danced at that party and I was smiling and having a good time, even though I don't remember that, that's how I will remember it from now on. And all of a sudden I have a good memory. So, weird, right? But it's in there. So, not everybody's bad. I don't like the idea of writing people off. In the moment, like, get out of here, go away, I'll deal with you in a minute. That's as close as I go to writing people off. I think everybody's got a shot. I mean, you can run me out of patience, we'll say, and run out of shots and opportunities with me, but in most cases, I can't see too many people not doing right when given the chance. Unless, there are some people who are medically sort of predisposed to thinking poorly. But anyway, let's move on to the next bit. So, comparing character's traits. When we talk about someone's character, we kind of go back to that integrity metaphor. And so we describe someone's character as either being weak or strong. A strong character is what we want. That's the one that we can always trust that this person is going to be doing the things that we need. And other aspects of the strength of character are how much that character benefits the overall group. And so although someone could be consistently, I don't know, snotty to people, or I don't know, we'll just go with that. Uh, that's not necessarily strong character. That's kind of weak character because it's dividing people and separating people. And so it's not necessarily the intensity of the character trait, but it's also like what it's going to do to you. I don't know. I definitely kind of over-explain some things, don't I? But it's fun for me, at least. So suck it. Sorry. So we want willpower, we want self-discipline. These are good things that are going to allow us to sustain, stay together, be working together. Weak character is going to just basically be lacking elements of the strong character. They'll have bits and pieces of drive and energy and willpower. They'll have fragments of them, but they just won't have been trained well enough, processed well enough, whatever the word is, but they just won't be at that marker yet. And so most instances, and that's why I say most people are kind of redeemable, is that a weak character is not necessarily an absence of character traits. It's just an underdevelopment of those character traits. So if you can work on developing those, you should end up with some positive results. All right. Moving through. So leading by example, this is a fun slide for anybody who's seen it or knows it. So on the left, we got Mr. R. Lee Ermey playing Gunnery Sergeant Hartman in Full Metal Jacket. And on the right, we got McHale from McHale's Navy. Of these two, who do you think was the better leader? Who was the most effective leader? A lot of us might say Sergeant Hartman because we remember him getting down on everybody and hollering and hooting and, hey, you get off this and blah, blah, blah. But we tend to forget that he was shot in the stomach in a toilet. So, yeah, not great. Whereas McHale he was really laid back. But in every episode, McHale had maybe a little too much candor, might say. And so his troops had a little bit of just like, whatever, it's just McHale. What are you going to do? It was friend mode kind of shit. But every episode, there'd be all right, gang. And all of a sudden, they're like, yes, sir. And, it gets everybody's ass together and they go do their job. I've had days like McHale's Navy before and been effective in my mission. And I've had days like Full Metal Jacket and they were dumb. It's weird when you're in it. It's not that intimidating. It's kind of like, what's his deal? Are you all right, man? Like, he just coughed. All right, I guess this is what we're doing. Like, to me, it was a bit theatrical. But that was the Air Force. It was, I'm just saying, I love you guys, but boot camp could use some work. But that's kind of the interesting, you might have this idea that like, oh, I got to go be the guy on the left here. I got to be Sergeant Hartman. I got to jump in people's shit. This is what we got to do. We got a mission. We got to go. Ho, ho, ho. But in all reality, you could be just as effective and get just as much done as McHale wearing Hawaiian shirts and flip-flops. And then you just have a roll call at, dinner time and go, yo, I'm not serving booze until decks are clean. Roger that, sir. We're on it. And there you go. It depends on the situation. It depends on what's going on. That kind of, the training that Sergeant Hartman was doing was required, and that was identical to what was going on in Parris Island. But that's because they had like 6 weeks at that point. Right now I think it's like a 3-month course, Marine Corps basic training. And back in Vietnam it was like 6 weeks, which is just not enough time to turn them into the creatures they needed to be. And I don't know if that ever happened. I can't see it happening, but I also kind of see it happening. I mean, I watched it happen in the movie. That's a little... But anyway, your leaders are looking to you for results. And so if they see you chopping around like Hartman, they're going to be like, yo, I can't trust you with my people because you're going to jump in their shit every 10 minutes. And if they see you sleeping around like McHale, they're going to be like, I can't trust you with my work because you're not going to get anything done. And so the real example you need to set is somewhere in the middle. That someone who can be both of those, someone who can be successful in both situations. And so your supervisors are looking for you to kind of be that, to be able to jump into either mode when needed and know when those modes need to come in. Your troops are looking at you for guidance. Again, the setting the example thing. You're telling them what it's okay to be like, what they should be, what they should want to be. And so the example you provide is, this is how we treat our people, or Casual Friday, whatever you're doing, but you're telling your troops, like, this is how we do that. And oftentimes, too, if you're part of a larger organization, you're saying this is how the Air Force does it, or this is how Google does it, or this is how Amazon does it. And they'll start to get this misconception that this behavior is acceptable across the entirety of the organization, which, that's going to get you a phone call eventually. Just saying. Alrighty, so character building. I think this is an important thing to just consider. Now, we've got Silver Patrol on the left, if you want to see what those guys look like. In the upper right, we have Boy Scouts. In the lower left, we have the Girl Scouts. And in the lower right, there's just a kid doing jujitsu. Because, yeah. Why do these build character? Because these are opportunities for experience, for unique experience. We already know what we're going to get out of sending them to school. They're going to get this, they're going to get that, they're going to get homework. They might learn where Spain is, they might not. It's 50-50 at this point. But these specialized organizations out there that have youth groups are going to ensure that your kids are doing something besides all the other nonsense they're doing right now. And they'll provide opportunities to contextualize the things they know. And that's why you end up with kind of nicer people, better people from these organizations. It's not to say you're not going to be a great person if you don't do this, but this is a fast track. And some of these organizations have their own values that you may align with or disagree with or whatever that is. Figure it out ahead of time. But for the most part, anything that will teach you how powerful you are and give you a chance to prove it to yourself is always going to benefit you. So that's the biggest consideration, is proving to these kids just how much they can accomplish. These are the same little monkeys that made the fucking A-bomb. Dangerous little creatures. And we don't tell them that. And that's at our peril. We don't tell them how powerful they are. It's like we were at Hogwarts and didn't tell any of the kids they had magic powers. And then just one of them blew a kid up and we're like, whoa! Yeah, just don't tell them about the magic thing. It's just, kids explode sometime. What are you going to do? Shit happens. And that's the school shooting kind of thing. We're like, oh no, they just kind of go nuts sometimes. No, they don't. There are intense outside factors causing that to happen. And a lot of it is because you're not telling these kids the truth about what and who they are. And so if we want to develop the character in our culture, it starts with the youth. It starts with identifying what these kids are up to, what they can do, what they can't do, yada, 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 and what organizations are out there trying to help give them, at a minimum, just an experience. Something besides what's already coming. Alrighty. So when building character, it's going to require honesty, because you want that character in your people. So if you're developing their characteristics or their character traits, and you're not leading by example, you're going to get bad examples. So you need to be honest with them. You need to understand what the real strength in your character is, in their character. What are you good at? What can you do? And you need to be honest about what you suck at, what you need to work on, what's going to require some classes or some testing or whatever. But that needs to be identified as well. And you need to be open to feedback and advice for yourself. If you're trying to, I suck at this, how am I going to fix it? You're not going to fix it alone. I mean, you might, a few years down the road, come across something, but like, just talk to somebody and you'll figure it out that day. So just do that. Get advice, get feedback constantly. Okay. And so if we're focusing on building your own character specifically and not the people under you, it's going to be, you're taking that responsibility in is the big thing. So you understand that this is, responsibilities again is the care and maintenance of a thing. So this is the care and maintenance of your own character. You're putting it into your, all right, I'm in charge of this now. I'm going to make sure that this does good, bad, or the otherwise. Access what you've already got, what you're already good at, and figure out what you're not good at. And then start figuring out places that are going to give you opportunities to do the thing you're not good at. I'm not good at baseball. I'm okay at baseball. I used to be kind of alright, but I don't know. But if I'm that kind of level of unconfident about baseball, then I'll go to a batting cage first. Yeah, I don't have to go all the way in. So if, determining these kind of missions where I'm going to get the experience, so I want to, you want to be the manager of a store. Well, figure out how to manage a shift first. See if you can't get that going. And that's going to give you some heads up on this next bit and this next bit. And that's really going to be, it's never going to happen in reading. It's never going to happen watching. It's never going to happen listening to an audiobook. You may get some things out of it, but it's always proving it in real life, experiencing the thing to be true or not, is what cements it as something you can technically know other than just believe, which is more semantics and philosophy, but we can get into that in another episode one day. You need to develop habits that will force you to kind of do these things and repeat them, whatever you're trying to do. I'm trying to be more honest, or I'm trying to be less annoying, or and then you start coming up with habitual sorts of behavior that you can do to support that. So I'll write a note to myself, or I'll have a rubber band on my wrist, or whatever it is you got to do. You establish it and you put it into place. But you're setting yourself up for success. You're just the same as you're training your own troops. This is your own personal training, and you're trying to get the same results, the same kind of things that you would get if you submitted your own people through the training. This is just on you. And so you're using all the same stuff we've already talked about. You're just pointing it inwards. And you can get the exact same amount of change out of another person as you could yourself. So even though you may feel stuck in your ways, you can use these Jedi tricks just the same on you and get what you need done. So I suck at this. Boom. Do some work on it. You'll be better. When you're building the character in your people, you want to how do I want to put this? It's I want to be kind of clear but quick with it. I don't want to go too nuts. You want to be consistent in your presentation. Again, that goes to the integrity. It goes to, we've talked about how all these things intertwine and weave together. And the consistency you provide is going to create kind of an environment, a place where the things you want to make sense are going to make sense, and the things you don't want to make sense aren't going to make sense anymore. And that's kind of what you're doing. You want to... That's the easiest way to change behaviors in people, is to change the environment, or play with the environment, or that... I don't know, that seems to be better for me, at least in my practice. And that change... I lost my place. Oh, it's only the second time I forgot what I was saying in 7 hours. It's not bad. Not bad at all. Let's see. Yeah, it's just like anything else. Character is, you have to be careful. You have to be consistent. If you take away anything besides the purpose, motivation, and direction business, remember that for sure. That's easy. It's 3 things: purpose, motivation, direction. Come on now. But besides that, consistency. Consistency is what's going to get you in and out of trouble. Your ability to be predictable on one thing or another is going to do you some good, and in some cases it can harm you. So you need to start learning how to develop habits and break habits. And it's really tricky. It's super tricky. But if you can kind of learn that, you can start to make your way through how to change these behaviors subtly in your people without having to require sort of exaggerated training. All right, so we're in here. So let's consider Sorry for the vape. Rude. Let's consider these character builders. I think most of them are gone now. But this is ISIS, if you've never seen them. And they took the same kind of people that I find in CAP, or if you go to Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or Young Marines or any kind of youth organization, the 4-H, you're going to find kids with free time. That's ISIS. And then more so what you're going to find that with them is kids who are absent of moral guidance, or provided with poor moral guidance, or conflicting moral guidance. Something, their God X is not fully figured out. It's still a weird variable for them. And because they have, it's wiggly, somebody else can come in and be like, use this X, and then boom, you're an ISIS. And it's really just that easy. Just the same as the sort of school shooter escalation, and it's an escalation of, there was a consistency of behavior that was leading to a certain set of things, and then it just goes fucking haywire immediately. And that is, swear jar. That leads you to like the bike lock scenario with the Antifa folks. Like, now you're outnumbered. You're shit out of luck. This is where you are. These guys are sitting on their computer. They don't know anything. They're watching videos. All the information they have says this is a good idea. And then they go and they're like, oh, this is a horrible idea. But I'm in ISIS now. I can't go home because they'll kill me. Maybe. Probably not. If you like surrender and do it the right way. But I mean, if you meet them on the field, they're going to shoot you for sure. So, But yeah, you end up in these situations, and that's the risk of people who claim to have answers. It's a risk I weigh a lot. I'm talking about things that are going to dig into your brain if you go this far, and I could do damage if I unsettle something. We'll see. I don't know. But there's that risk. I for sure don't want anyone to I don't like the idea of popularity. I just like the idea of these things getting done, and unfortunately this is the method to do it. But then there are organizations that love it, that need it, that require it. They have these cults of personality that soak in money and soak in resources because, this person's going to save us. And the truth is, that's a complete fucking lie. Because if you look at character building for the better, this is just a marching band. I forget what school it is. Roch? It's not Roch. I don't know. But these kids, they're going to be okay. And you can tell that quite simply just by how they're standing. They're proud. They got smiles. They're having a good time. This was a good memory in their head. Everything that led them here is helpful and is categorized as a helpful thing. So all the stress they had at band camp when they're marching around and carrying heavy shit and sweating and they're going through puberty and it's a nightmare, all of that chaos and struggle was worth it for whatever this was, this presentation, this show, and it led to that. And so now they have a cemented experience within them that is proof that if you work hard, you will accomplish things. And now we have a better person out in society. They also work as a team. There's all kinds of crazy things that go in addition to being on a marching band. And it's the same kind of character development you see in the military, or you see in the Boy Scouts, or you see wherever. Anytime you get a bunch of people trying to do the same thing, awesome stuff happens. Kinda. Let's pull that back. Interesting stuff happens. But people will learn how to get along, and they will learn what they can do and how powerful they are and how tough they are. Even in a marching band. Kid with a flute's going to whoop your ass. Because they did 6-7 miles a day, this, that, and the other. They can out-PT you any day. And it's a surprise when it happens. But it's kind of awesome, too. So experience is the key to sort of developing character. Again, it's proving it. It's proving that these things are true. So going back to Gunnery Sergeant Hartman, because he's fun. This is a bad way of changing a problem. He's isolated him. He's put him at the back. 100% guaranteed to get fragged in a bathroom. It's slow motion. That's what that little note says. Because it's true. This is how you get shot, is you make yourself a target. Because now you are interrupting this person's ability to interact with the rest of them. So now they cannot become a part of the social group. And so now they're fighting you to get into the social group. And then at the end, he decided the fight wasn't worth it, killed himself. Because that was the only victory he could attain over whoever was keeping him out in his own mind. Like, that's how that happens. That is that psychology 100%. Just the same as, the school shooter type. I was on a list when I was a kid, I found out, which was kind of fucked up. Because I'm a bit of a spaz, very smart, and it's just what it is. Dumb shit, though, so I'll admit that. But I was on a list because they're like, well, if anyone's going to shoot people, it's this asshole. And it was just because in the 90s, that's how they thought. Like, well, one of these guys is going to kill everybody, right? So they would just pick somebody. Or they'd pick a bunch of somebodies. And they keep an eye on us. And they pick on us. And the administration, by the way, this wasn't other students who had this list. This was the administrators of the schools who had these lists. And who would take us into separate rooms and ask us weird fucking questions. And they were grooming us to become shooters. But they were very honestly trying to prevent a shooting. But all of their efforts were making new shooters. Making more people angry. Making people understand that if they had a problem, they can't trust the people around them. They can't go to the people around them with their problems. And so they have to deal with it on their own. And when they deal with it on their own, they get weird. And then they start shooting. That's how it plays out. Every time. I will put money on it that's every one of them is someone fighting to belong and so angry at the thing they don't belong to that they're willing to destroy it. That's a school shooting. That's a mass shooting. That's what it is. They're angry at the dragon. And so don't be a fucking dragon. Invite them in. Remind them that they're a tooth and a claw. They're important. They're part of the dragon too. And you bring people in, and that's how you change them. Because they view themselves as weak. You need to remind them how strong they are. When he isolates this individual over here, has him pull his pants down, thumb in his mouth, he's a baby, da-da-da, there's all this mocking going on. He is introducing the idea to this person that he is no longer a part of the group. That he's not even a component. He's not even similar to these creatures. He's a juvenile in comparison to these. But they're all boys, scrawny little creatures. This separation makes it so that they can't participate. They can't see it as anything other than an enemy. Until the threat's gone. Until they know that, oh, actually these guys kind of like me. I just talk weird. And that weirds some of them out. And we need to have a conversation about that so we're not dicks to each other. But like, yeah, alright. Cool. They're not into the same cartoons as me. Alright. Like, there's a lot of violence that all violence can be talked away. There's sometimes where it's just too late and you're fucking in it. But all moments of violence could have been precipitated with some kind of peaceful intervention. That's 100% true. So I'm going to show a picture. I'll tell you right away that both these kids are fine. And this picture is on purpose. But look at this. The effect is this. You can't see the notes on it. But so let's look at the kid on the left. You can see there's discoloration in the cheeks. You can see there's sweat in the hair. There's a glisten on the skin. They are not having a good time. And the person on the right, they're yelling. And if you look at my note, they got lots of pretty crap on the uniform, which means they should know better. They're encroaching on personal space. They're minimizing the value of the individual on the left. Both people have been through this, and they've been talked about. They know what's up. I don't think they know they're on this, but they're cool. They're fine. But that's kind of the fun part about CAB too, is we give kids a chance to do this, and they're like, whoa, buddy, come here. And then we can talk about and be like, hey, this is how you don't get shot by your troops. We walk them out of the gun restart Hartman mode. But if you're jumping in your people's face all the time, they're not going to listen to you. They're not going to have a reason to listen to you. There's not going to be any motivation there, because fuck you. You are a threat. And that's just what's happened. You have placed yourself as a threat against them. And until the perception of the threat is gone, you're not going to get anywhere. You will only be engaged with at the level of threat that you have put out there. So if, like, let's say you put somebody in a headlock, you're not going to be able to talk to them and be like, remember this, remember that. Because if they're busy trying to get out of that headlock, that is all they're thinking about. If you have them locked in a room, and you say that, you know, there's dogs out there or whatever, like, they're only going to be thinking about that thing, because that is far more important than whatever the hell your opinion is on whatever else. And so you have to make your point the most important thing, and you can only do that by articulating it clearly. It does not become more important when you get aggressive. When it becomes aggressive, you become a threat, and just all hell breaks loose. It happens, though, because it's a juvenile reaction, it's a practiced reaction, and it's just something that needs to be unpracticed. So if you have somebody who is just a pain in the ass, you got somebody at work who is not cutting it, or they're just, you're like, what is this dude's deal? What is going on here? We need to fix this person. Well, how do you fix that person? Well, it's going to be different depending on if they're a kid or an adult as far as speed goes. Kids can pick up stuff much faster, and they can deal with abstracts a lot better, and technology is not a problem for them. So you don't have to, you can just throw them to a website and then talk about it later, and then you should kind of be good in most cases. With an adult, they're cemented in a lot of ways in how they process information, what information they can process, all kinds of stuff there. But either way, it's going to be by providing experiences, and you're going to have to craft an experience that will result in the emotion you would like to have them feel. Sounds weird, and it is. But, I mean, you've seen this done before if you've ever seen a haunted house. The idea is to make you, a normal, regular person who's having a good day, scared for a little while, and then comfortable enough to continue on with your day. That's also part of those horror rides. Because if it was just insane all the way through, you would get off and lose your mind. Like, they do need to kind of, like, there is something to signify that this is the end of this experience. And so when you're changing people or behaviors, a lot of times it's like a group activity, and you put forward a challenge, something that would require them to either talk to each other, or you come up with something that's going to allow that to be what happens. I want them to feel bad about hurting somebody. I want them to know how strong they are, so that when they're busy roughhousing with their friends, they don't break somebody's fucking arm. Well, teach wrestling, or teach jiu-jitsu, or some kind of martial art like that, where it's precision, it's on there, and much of it is about management of force, understanding how much force you can produce and what to do with it. And then you're for sure going to hurt somebody and get hurt, and you're going to know what this feels like. And so when you do it to somebody, you'll be empathetical enough to kind of ease back when you can feel they're like, oh, they're about to fall asleep, and they're out. Okay. It's because you've been there. And having that experience will help. And so it's just kind of a matter of figuring, what does this person not great at? What kind of lifetime TV movie experience can you give them to make them better at it? What's the romantic comedy angle? What's the creative angle? What environment are you going to put them in so that it makes sense to do the thing you want, or to think the thing you want, or believe the thing, whatever's going to happen. In this theater you create, what's going to make the most sense? And it should be, if you've done it right, the thing you'd like them to start doing, rather than the thing they used to. And so you make it that you sort of represent the value. They've already done it in their head. They think this is a better option than that. But if you change the scenario around so that the option you want is now better, then they have that at least in their head. And so now they still have the bad habit of whatever, but they have this additional new habit and practice of doing it this way. And so, boom, they develop skill. It's always going to be about experience. It's always going to be about communicating that experience, talking them in and out, having like a a pre-brief, like a here's what's happening kind of thing, and then have a debrief at the end. Like, here's what we did. Here's what we want to do next. How'd it go? What do you think? These are the most effective ways to get things done. You just do it, let them feel it, and then talk about what it felt like. And it's the most effective way to get these, especially like extremely subjective feelings across, and utilizing those feelings for the purposes of getting a job done. Like, it's so wild and up in the air that we really kind of need, again, it needs to be experienced. It's a thing that won't make sense until you feel it. Okay, so let's move on to there. Considering respect. So these are some pictures of my grandpa. On the left, that's him now. On the right, that's him in the 50s, I think. 50s or 60s. And so when we respect somebody, it's about what they've done for us as a people, as a family, as a whatever. But it's also about who they were, about the experiences they had. He was a first-generation Danish immigrant. Both his brothers were born in Denmark still. And he was American as apple pie specifically because that. He married a hillbilly, Ida Gay McCoy, son of Randall, granddaughter Randall McCoy. Randall McCoy is my granddaddy's granddaddy, if that makes any sense. Hillbillies would get it. But that's how American he was. And that was something I respected of him, because there was nothing Danish about him. I have very little, I know about Danish food. Kinda. I know about the Danish food we eat. Yeah, that's good enough. I don't know about anything with a fish I haven't touched. It's mostly pastries on my end. Pastries and sausage and things like that. But I remember who he was. I respected him for trying. And, he was in World War II. He was in the Navy. He was always trying to do the American thing, because he was the first American. And that was interesting, in hindsight, to realize and recognize. It wasn't something I realized till after he died. That's really kind of how he lived his life, as the first American of his people. And he nailed it. He had everything but an anchor tattoo. American as all can be. And that's the thing to consider when you respect other people. It's not only what they've done. Yeah, you can see these headstones, like, oh, they're cool. But remember the person under there. Remember the person behind it. The kid this used to be, the confused young dude in New York. He grew up in Syracuse, I think. By 14, he was already running away and cooking on sailing barges on the Great Lakes. What the hell was going on there with that guy? The way he put it, his home life wasn't great. And that's all he said. It must have been pretty shitty if he was running away to be a cabin boy on a freighter going up Lake Superior and down. Nuts, right? But it's also the surprise. Respect the fact that people can always surprise you. You can have certain assumptions about other people, but you'll be surprised, and you'll be glad to be surprised that you're wrong. All right, so let's move on to the next. So you want to respect your troops, and you want to gain the respect of your troops. And this all comes from them seeing how honest you are and seeing how intent you are to get these things done. You don't have to over-broadcast it and be ridiculous about it, but when they see you doing these things, they will begin to develop respect for you. If you start shining too much attention on it, like, oh, I'm doing these things, so we do this, they're going to think you're a dickhead. It doesn't feel natural. So in order to gain their respect, they need the sort of, I mean, that's almost sort of the biggest component of candor that makes it nice is it's a feeling of natural speech versus sort of impressed speech, the kind of speech you should be using versus how you would normally talk. And candor is a big component of that. You're not using everyone else's language. You're speaking as yourself, not as an entity of the organization. So you gain the respect for your troops when they see you as an entity of the organization, and so how you give your orders. But then they also see you as they develop respect for you through what did I? Third time. Boom! Can't remember what I was talking about. It just disappears, yo. I got a slide though. Troops respect. When they see that you're worth respecting, they'll start. And just think about that when you're doing your self-review, when you're doing your checks on, am I good, am I bad, what do I got to do? If you're not getting respected, it could be because you're not respectable yet, or because you're not carrying yourself as though you should be respected. Maybe you don't have enough confidence and you carry it. And so you feel weak, so people treat you like you're weak. Maybe it's a confidence game, and maybe you got to fake it. But eventually, it'll be real. So fake it till you make it. They're trusting you. They're expecting you to make the decision that's going to make their day go better. And so just have a decision when they ask. And that's the entirety of your job. And if they see that that's your dedication and your focus is to making sure that they're going to be okay, they're going to get their job done, and they're going to have a place to come back and do this tomorrow, then they will respect you to the end of the world. And they will make sure whatever you need to get done gets done. And that's the truth. That's how humans work. Confidence is hard to develop because it's something that you can... Self-confidence is dashed very quickly in humans. I don't know where that comes from. It may be a defensive mechanism to allow for depression to kick in. But we can be convinced we suck really quick. So much so that people who think they're awesome are considered to have a disease. Like, it's that much a human trait to kick yourself in the ass that, we have narcissism and other sort of traits out there that we're like, these people are fucking weird. And it's an abundance of confidence that seems weird. And so you don't want to overdo it and be overly confident, but you just want to be confident enough. There was a good line from in Ender's Game towards the end of it, where he says, you don't send them when they're ready, you send them when they're ready enough. And that is a very true statement. It's any artist knows the same thing, that you're never done, you're just done right now. It's that same kind of, whatever the moment requires, that's what the moment's going to get, but you are what you are. The confidence your people have doesn't have to be that they are the best. It's mostly confidence in their consistency. It's confidence in their ability to do the thing they've been asked to do. It doesn't always have to be difficult, doesn't always have to be strange, doesn't always have to be whatever. But if they are the SEAL Team 6 of getting computers back online, then they're the fucking SEAL Team 6 of getting computers back online. And so when you call the IT office, you're going to get a little bit of attitude from these fuckers. But it's worth it because they're going to get shit back. So the situation changes, and when you add confidence to it, all of a sudden you're like, all right, what do you guys need? It's no longer demands to the other section. It's you saying, do you think you guys could help me out with something? It changes altogether. And confidence goes a long way. And if you have no confidence, you have to fake it. Sorry, but you do. I do it all the time. Don't tell anybody. But every moment I tell you I'm certain of a thing, I am uncertain of a thing. Anytime I'm sure, I'm completely unsure. That's just me. That's my brain. I'm a little too dialectic. Is that a thing? Can one be dialectic? No, I don't think one can. But anyway, I'm a spaz. And so, and even though I have moments of, and the people I work with know that I have moments of self-doubt. And so that makes my confidence even more important when I'm sure of a thing. And it makes it more important for me to demonstrate confidence, even if I'm not 100% there. Even if I think whatever's going on in my head, I need to make sure they believe this as much as I do. And so I put on whatever kind of show I can to ensure that they think that way. And then I go home and sit in the dark and nobody bothers me. Agoraphobia for the win. Yeah, moving on. Confidence. So all that crazy training and all that stuff, and I apologize to this Lieutenant Colonel, but I do not have her name, Cadet Lieutenant Colonel. But that's some confidence right there. And the kid behind her with the orange hat and look at that kid. It's a bad mother. All these kids are awesome. And it's confidence. And you know what they're about to go do? Park airplanes. Confidently. They're going to be the SEAL Team 6 of parking airplanes. Doing all the whoop, 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 all that stuff. That's them. They have 2 weeks. They have a week of training, and then they have a week of doing it at the world's largest air show. I think it's the world's largest air show. Sounds like it from the way they talk. But that level of confidence I can send anywhere as a leader. I see that in my troops, and I'm like, all right, Colonel, you get your guys, go. You got this. And I know I'm right. I know I can send them out as, we've said it in sort of previous episodes that what made the American victory in Europe secure was not our knowledge ahead. Like, it was more of our ingenuity. It wasn't necessarily what we had, but it's what we could do with what we had. It was our creativity. It is the fact that we were jazz musicians. Every squad is a jazz quartet, just like ba 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 ba, all the way to fucking Germany, and we got it. And that's how we run. And it's having these small, confident teams, having people like this who can be like, yeah, I got you. Let's go. They'll put on their gear and they'll head out the door and they're like, what are we doing again? I don't know, but it's going to be fun, and they're going to handle it. And it's going to be done. It's going to be perfect. And it's unique to America. It's unique to, I think it's pretty much just us who does this. Who has this like freewheeling military of, because your opinion of the military might be that we are nameless, faceless numbers. But the military is just a large organization of the most fascinating individuals you've ever met. Who are all working towards the same goals. It's not one machine. Per se, I mean, it is, but everyone knows what part of the machine they are. And it gives them confidence. Because they know they might not be the teeth or the claws, but they're going to hit their target, and it's going to be good. Even if you're the ass, be a good ass. Confidence in your capability. It'll get you deployed, it'll get you jobs, it'll get you a number of things. If I can sense that I can trust you to do this, you're going. And that's how adventure starts. All right, so I'm going to take a break. We're coming on to 5:42. I think I have 0 viewers. We still raised a little bit of money. I want to give a good shout out to my friend Devin for donating. I appreciate it. She's always been kind of in the background, just making sure I'm not dead, which is good. Consistency. She's always, over the years, made sure that I'm still ticking, which not a lot of people have done. So, thank you. And also for helping these kids get where they need to go. If we get that far. I hope we do. But alright, I'm going to take a break. We will be back. I'm going to take a whole hour and 15 minutes. At 7 p.m., I'm going to come back with my buddy Giovanni, I think his last name, but I always call him John GJ, because that's how he spells it. And he's a bad mother. He's a great musician. He is a business operator. He's got a lot of cool experience that we can kind of dig into, but we're going to be talking about Star Wars Rogue One, how that's just an awesome movie, how that's an awesome movie about the military, and what kind of things you could pull from it if you're struggling with mental health. And the same thing we'll do with Starship Troopers. I don't know if there's a whole lot of positive lessons in Starship Troopers, but it's there. And then we're going to talk about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which for me is just a good movie for today. Because if you haven't seen it, it's a movie about forgetting stuff. And today, for a lot of people, is a day to try and forget. But that movie, and it does a good job of proving something I found out, that forgetting isn't what's important. It's making new memories is what's going to fix it. So that's the plan. That's the annual deployment. That's us selling t-shirts. That's us doing a Patreon. That's all the stuff we're up to today. I appreciate those of you who hung out with us so far. It's been a disaster, but today's a day for disasters. Alrighty, so I'm going to see you guys at 1900 local, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in Detroit. Please, 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 please send a message to your friends and relatives and whomever you love and care about and thinks is awesome and could donate to us. If this works, it'll do great things. That much is true. It's just a matter of getting it there. So help us out. We love you. Go do some Warrior stuff. Enjoy your dinner. See you in a bit. 7 p.m. Eastern. Love you. Bye.